Good afternoon. No, that's not right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the Good Values podcast. Now, this is a bit of a different episode, as you can already tell. There isn't a guest this week, and I'm just going to be talking to you about what's been going on. Now today, all day, I've been feeling really under the weather. I think I've just got run down recently with burning the candle at both ends. Basically, for the last, 28 days, I've been uploading 9 videos a week. And I think it's just caught up to me a little bit. I've been wanting to cut my hair. That's why my hair's all swept over here. Is that I've been wanting to get it cut. Been meaning to do a dramatic performance where I play several characters, one of whom has long hair and a beard, and another one who doesn't, and a couple of other characters as well, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. Every time I consider doing it, I don't end up following through. Let me think. So, for the last 28 days, I've been engaging in the Inktober drawing challenge. Anyone who's been watching the art videos will know I've been doing that solely with my left hand, and I am right-handed. But I had an injury on my right hand on the last day of September. So I had to decide whether or not to engage with the challenge. And I decided that it would be worth seeing what happened if I started drawing with my left hand. And surprisingly, it's gotten quite decent results in my opinion. Not creatively for the subject, but for the results of how to draw with my left hand. I think it's getting better and better. And I say that surprisingly because I just thought it would be just unnatural constantly, and there's nothing that I could do about that. But thankfully, I've been able to warm up to it. And it's relatively easy now to draw with my left hand. And it's a good job because I haven't done today's instalment yet, so I'm going to have to do that at some point this evening. Here it's currently 10 to 8 in the evening, and I've been resting throughout the day, and I feel as though I'm recovering. I couldn't record earlier in the day. I'd be constantly sneezing and sniffing, and I haven't been coughing, but I've just been really congested and feeling worn down, so I just had to rest. So I watched the 25th anniversary of the South Park cartoon, which was a live performance with musical guests, and really, really funny, really nice. So I did that today whilst I was laying in bed, and just watched some cartoons, which was nice, just to relax a little bit. But lately there's been a few challenges that I've had to get over, which I don't mind challenges, but like where it kind of hits you and you feel, I don't know, a bit knocked back by it, where, rejection by certain parts of your life where you just need support, and you feel as though you've been told this isn't okay, and you just think, well, okay, that's certainly not something that I was trying to overstep in any way. I thought this was just a normal way of being productive, and just been told, nope, can't do that anymore. And then a couple of conversations which I was having have come to a dead end as far as guests and potential development for the podcast, which it might still go ahead, but at the moment it seems as though it's not going to have an exciting development that I haven't even teased to you yet, but I won't mention it just in case it does. still go ahead. It's just a couple of things that, I don't know, I was looking forward to, and a few things kind of hit you in a row. And as I said, guests for the podcast, there was a couple of people who I've been trying to book who have fallen through for one reason or another. And until you know the reason, sometimes you just think, what is going on? It's just my world is just caving in around me. And I always wanted to have a guest every week. So this week is an impromptu one-on-one. And that's fine. I don't mind doing this. It's just that I like my new podcast being a bit of a different format, which this still is. I've been tempted to talk about the changing format, but it makes me pause and think, if the new podcast is good values, then is it good values to just not discuss when things have gone sour? Or is it better values to discuss the events respectfully, but clearly, so that the audience can learn from the different issues and unexpected things that happened? Because for me, I was completely blindsided, and I have wanted to open up about that. I had several ideas for the channel which have not come to fruition yet, and anyone who's seen my updates, that I've done 2 updates for the channel, and one of which is a separate video series that I am going to start from next month onwards. I don't know how frequently I'll be posting them. It may be fortnightly, it may be once a month. It depends how much work needs to go into it. And there'll be a vlog that I'm going to be starting from next month as well. These are things that I'm really excited about and positive about, but there's another kind of podcast idea that I was thinking of doing, and I don't know if I'm going to do that. I'm not sure, because I don't know if there's enough substance there. But if not yet, then certainly by a specific point in time, and I'm going to discuss why that needs to elapse before I can start the podcast. Not here, but I'll mention it at the time. There's been a lot of times where I've been saying I really want to talk about something to my viewers, and I've not been able to, because I've just felt a bit like my hands are tied, really. For example, the attempt to have the podcast cancelled or taken down by a specific institution is something which I wanted to discuss. And it's just, it's just bizarre. It's surreal when you just think all I'm doing is trying to share with my online platform conversations and information, and nothing which is disingenuous or untrue. But you can just, find that there are obstacles in your way when you have the best of intentions. So that is something which I've been mulling over and wondering whether or not to define good values differently than I initially intended, which was to be, one, family friendly, which so far there's only one swear word on one podcast, which I missed, and I usually try to take them all out. Not that I think it's poor values to swear. I don't have anything against bad language, but or even the term bad language I don't think is really accurate, but I'm aware that if someone tells me that they want to watch the podcast or that they're interested in it, I would have liked to have said it's fine for your children to watch it as well. There's nothing in it which is necessarily explicit, except for one episode where I interview someone who makes erotic art. And even that, I wonder if that's a bad thing or not to have children watch, because it's not erotic art in the way of lovemaking. It's more explicit art as far as nudity goes, and it addresses derogatory terms for women. And I think that's really important for children of all ages to understand. And it's not as though there's swearing in there, but there's the inclusion of certain words which are directed towards women specifically. And I think things like that are important to understand and to not censor, because why would you? You want to have an honest, direct conversation, and it's a reality that we're trying to get over. It's just a truth, really, and it's not a truth that children shouldn't be ready for, because that's something which children, basically are confronted with at a young age without being prepared a lot of the time. So, I mean, I'm not sure whether or not there are parents who watch my podcast and have children who are young, but I like to think that if it ever is seen by parents with young children, then it would be something which they feel safe watching. So there's one episode where there's one swear word, and it's not a bad swear word, it's just slipped in, it's just one thing, and it's the episode with Gabriella Handel, and she was absolutely perfect guest. She really was, one of my favourites, absolutely. And it's just one swear word that I just didn't find until after it was published, which it's not even important really. I suppose it's a standard I was trying to keep, and it's one which I made back when my first podcast, which wasn't called Good Values, was being established. I remember making a point to the person who I was making the podcast with that we shouldn't swear, and they were of the opinion that it doesn't really matter whether we swear or not. And they said to me that I shouldn't smoke because at the time I smoked, and I don't anymore. And I agreed that I shouldn't smoke, but I said that there are YouTube channels that I'd seen at the time where smoking was part of the process and you don't get demonetized for it. But I don't know why I was making that point. It was a bit, I don't know, just a tit for tat argument. It was a bad point that I was trying to make, really. But yeah, I was trying to encourage them not to swear, and I think they were pushing back against that. And I think I just thought it'd be nice to have a family-friendly channel where I develop it into something where it's not for kids necessarily. It's ideas and content for people of all ages, I suppose, but something where I was considerate enough of the viewers not to be too casual, to try and be slightly professional. I say that as I'm here in a thermal t-shirt, cardigan and hair flopped over. Not that my hair ever looks good, but feeling very rough and feeling quite unprofessional and sloppy at the moment. But this is the type of thing where it's been playing on my mind, thinking, what are my values? What are my true values that I'd like to instill in the podcast? And not swearing is one which is not anything where I judge anyone else. I'm certainly not put off. But because I come from a fairly conservative family where swearing is seen as worse than certain other things, where I would say the other things being poor values in certain areas, where I have certain opinions and preferences, or not even preferences, but just moral and ethical judgments upon the treatment of others, which is not necessarily shared by everyone in the country, and that is given a lot more tolerance by my family than swearing. So I think that's why swearing is something which I share with them, to the extent that I don't want the likes of them to be offended by anything that I make. Not that what I make is going to be seen by my family, because it isn't necessarily, but I certainly would like to ensure that people who have those values that they have raised me with are not put off or offended by it. But also I would like to instill certain values that I think are really important and missing these days, where you have a lot of people putting personal freedoms over the protection of others, which I think is really an odd and negative way for the world to be turning at the moment. So that is something which I don't address with guests often, but I certainly have tried to find common ground with guests, and often do, where we share that priority, or that principle, I should say. I had a guest on Monday who I interviewed, and I took out a tripod, which is a ring light, the one which I'm using at the moment that the camera is propped up on, and it started to rain whilst we were outside. This is something where I couldn't do the interview over Zoom because they were not necessarily computer literate, and their preference was to meet in person. There's a couple of guests like that who I have coming up, and they should have been today's episode, but sadly what happened was, when it started raining, because my tripod is a ring light, it's electrical, so I had to pack that up quickly and protect it. And when the rain had passed, I'd already set up the camera with an opposable arm that grips, on one side and has a clamp on the other. And I'd set that up wherever I could, which was on an old dustbin, which was outside, just full of water. And I say an old dustbin, it's not like the new kind that we have in the UK, which are tall, kind of rectangular shapes. This is an old spherical or spheroid shape, where, like a tube, but only short, stubby, and fairly thin black plastic. And I'd clamped on one side of my opposable arm and put my camera, my phone, in the other side. I'd put my phone inside of a waterproof case and done a test to make sure the sound was coming through. It looked as though the visuals were clear enough, and started recording. We sat there and spoke for over an hour. It was a great conversation. And then when I checked the camera, when the guest wanted to go and make a cup of tea for themselves, and I checked the camera, and the camera had gone and drooped downwards. So you had a decapitated version of us both, where you could only see our torso and legs. So that was wasted, and I considered posting the audio with just a still image of the first camera angle, where you could see both of us. But the guest was concerned that it wasn't the best, so we've rescheduled already for next week, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to have done an audio-only podcast and seen how that played, but that happened. And I'm wondering whether, because we were sat out in the rain, and maybe my immune system is not as strong as it used to be with being in isolation so much of my life now, that potentially I'm more susceptible to illness, because it certainly came on fairly strong. So that happened, and that's something which I tried to scramble to recover with another guest as much as possible, but I had one rejection, which is a shame, and I kind of predicted that rejection, really. I had another guest who is an outdoor guest who I'm trying to book, but it's harder to get in touch with them. And then another guest who I reached out to who is not available until later, and they've referred me to someone else who I've not reached out to yet. So there are several other people who I could have reached out to, but unfortunately I was just busy with other things, with doing the other drawing and trying to do this collaboration artwork at the moment is kind of taking my focus away from certain other jobs. But I did try to scramble to get another guest, and just getting, that just didn't happen. So that was that. Not the worst thing, but it's certainly the first time that I've struggled to get a guest, with the extent of not having a plan for what's going to happen. Although I did do 2 clip shows in a row, which I quite liked. One being a clip of everyone in the podcast randomly, and the other clip show being everyone answering the "What's the most beautiful thing you've seen today?" question, which I thought was both podcast episodes that I really enjoyed. I wanted to do the most beautiful clip show anyway, and the other clip show worked out better than I imagined because I could talk a little bit about each guest and then show a clip of them just answering a random question, or just a random part of the podcast, I suppose. So that I really liked. And I've had a couple of really good guests since as well, so it's going well, and I am still making connections with people in order to keep the momentum going and keep it interesting. I have a big guest next month, which is only next week from now, because we're in late October. It's the 28th of October, and at some point in November I have arranged, not confirmed necessarily, but arranged and agreed with the guest to be Jared Muralt. If you're unaware who that is, he's a fantastic illustrator, and I have several of his books. I've bought one of his sketchbooks, I've got one of his hardback books, and I've got a few of his comic book issues here. And fantastic illustrator, and I reached out to him and he agreed to be on the podcast, so I was overjoyed with that, and I can't wait to talk to him about his process and his upbringing really, and kind of where he's been and how he got to where he is. And I'm just really looking forward to asking him about his stories that he's writing and creating at the moment. Seems like a really nice person and a really cool illustrator. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's next month. And I'm going to keep pushing to try and get people who are more well known as well as people who are local, because I like having it predominantly based in North Wales folk. But I also like the idea of it being global. Jared Muralt is from Switzerland, so that's the global idea really. So that's really exciting. I'm looking forward to that part. But there's been a couple of things just here and there which have been tricky. The collaboration I'll briefly talk about. That's one where, like I said earlier, I'm going to start doing a vlog next month. And I don't know how frequently I'll be posting. Currently, I think it will be one video a week, because it's going to be the same with my art videos. I'm currently doing 7 a week, and before doing 7 a week, I did 3 a week. I did one on Monday, one on Wednesday, one on Friday. Now I'm doing one every day of the week because it's Inktober. And I want my videos to be a bit more exciting, a bit more of an adventure really. I want to show different things and engage the landscape a bit more in my artwork, and to not necessarily make the drawing or painting the focus of the video. Now I know that may sound strange because it's an art channel, but I think interesting art channels are usually they contain other elements, things which are beautiful and things which artists would observe and appreciate anyway. So I'd like to really show certain areas and just explore certain areas, because I really don't know North Wales as well as I should. So I'm considering doing a bit of a journey to different spots just to try and find landmarks or do studies, and just plonk myself down somewhere with a sketchbook and do a drawing, or an easel and do a painting at a different place in each episode, and make my art videos a bit more of a vlog in that way. But I don't know, do vlogs have to be daily? Because I certainly won't be doing it daily, not unless I can really get a rhythm going, because at the moment doing the daily drawing has been fine. I can get it done, but I'm not making the videos especially creative. It's just intro, content, outro, and obviously the narrative throughout. and I'd rather have something a bit more interesting. For anyone who's not aware, my videos, the intro music I made myself, and obviously it's the same music for the outro, and the same for this podcast. I play the little plinky plonky tune on the beginning of the podcast. And I'm going to start making more bits of music, and I'm going to film that and show the process of me making the music, as well as introducing that into episodes of the vlog and the series, which I'm going to call Into the Fields, which is going to be the series about the collaboration which I'm doing with a fellow artist while we are on a journey to try to be granted funding by the Arts Council of Wales, and we're currently working on that. So I've started filming that a little bit. I'm going to have to I'm going to have to give that a bit more investment than I've done currently, because I'm also doing a painting at the moment. I'll show you, for a farmer, a lovely farmer, really nice guy, and it's that far at the moment. I don't know if you can see that very well, but yeah, that's where it is. Watercolour and pencil. And that's something which I've been trying to pick away at a little bit here and there, but I'm slow when it comes to making paintings. I've not, I can't project a finish and work towards it. I have to sit and mull it over, which is not the best. I need to start being quicker maybe, but that's something which I've started. I have been filming that as I've been doing it. I think that's something which has been on my mind. I wonder whether because everything that I do, whether it's drawing or painting or travelling or whatever, I've been trying to film as much as possible. I wonder whether that is making it more difficult to make artwork, because it does slow you down. It certainly does make the process of setting up and getting the work done take longer, and have to get over the additional hump of setting up the camera angles and the lighting and the environment to ensure that there's no interruption. And I wonder if that's slowing things down a little bit, but I don't think there's a way around that. That's something where I'd like to make artwork which more frequently, but I also need to film it. I do need to have the content to share, because that's the point of the channel. But I wonder whether if I start doing artwork that I don't film, whether that will help. Maybe that's something which I'll do from next month onward. I'm not sure. I need to give that some thought, because I need the artwork first, really. But the channel needs to be fed content, because I'm still trying to make this channel become something which is a bit more successful, I suppose. I shouldn't really moan. Some people say, it's for the time that I've been doing it, it's going fine and I'm doing well. But I was hoping after the How to Draw Like Peter Draws video for some kind of steady growth, and it did plateau at a certain point. And I've been tempted to do another Peter Draws video just to see if I can pull people back in again. And the excuse I used last time was because I did his post-it note prompt, and which was really nice. I don't know whether to do another prompt, because there are several which I've used that he introduced, or just to do that one again. But I don't know. It was good because he endorsed that video specifically, and that helps. Obviously there's the bad news of the passing of Kim Jong-il, and several people have mentioned that seeing my video was how they heard that he'd passed, and that happened on the 3rd of October, but they announced it on the 5th of October. The Super Annie team, which is his art group, his art collective, announced his passing on the 5th of October. which was the Wednesday, and he died on the Monday in Paris. Ooh, that was brutal. What a shock. I mean, he was only 47, I believe. And to die suddenly like that of heart failure is just shocking and unfair for him, his family, his friends, everyone who's close to him. And I'll spend a quick period of time now talking about a quick Kim Jong-il story. I met him in 2016 in Leeds. He was at the Thought Bubble Festival, and I had imagined that he would be behind barriers and I wouldn't be able to get close to him to talk to him, but he wasn't. I'd shown him, let me show you. I'd shown him, sorry about that bad audio then. I'd shown him these. I had drawn him 3 times. Once painting with a pot of ink, another time painting with an octopus, and a third time with him being the octopus and having a teacup, a saucer, paintbrush, a teapot and a brush pen in his hand. And anyway, I showed him a picture of those and said I was planning on cutting those out with a jigsaw, because I've done work like that before. That was, I think, predominantly what I was doing at the time, was drawing on pieces of MDF like that and then cutting it out and then sanding it all down and painting it and putting it in, stringing it for hanging and putting it into a gallery and selling it. And it used to sell quite good, that type of work, doing characters. But I'd shown him those and he said, why didn't you bring them? And I had to explain to him, I couldn't believe how easy it was to get to him. I thought there'd be huge crowds and, as I said, barriers and security. I mean, it's Kim Jong-il, he's a phenomenon. But anyway, so I was sad that I didn't get to give him those, because if I had made them and painted them, I would have given them to him as a gift. Anyway, that was a missed opportunity. I bought his book. He did a drawing inside, which is amazing, and he signed it to me. And he was doing a drawing on the wall at the same time, and it was men on horses and big. It was kind of like English based, I think, with kind of like Queen's Guards. I think they're called. What are they called? Are they beefeaters? The the big fuzzy hats. With those, and his drawing was quite interesting. He made a couple of mistakes and he hid them, and really funny, really interesting type of way of making artwork. And that's how I understand his artwork to be made. It's not how a lot of people understand his work. They think it's flawless and it's perfectly centered and there's no mistakes, and he just has this photographic memory. And he doesn't. He has a great reference of his kind of experience of anatomy and machinery and characters and things. So he's got a great, kind of catalogue to dip into from his experience. But he makes mistakes. He even says that himself in videos, and it's just learning how to hide those mistakes, and that's what I really valued about his work. Anyway, that day when I saw him, there was a guy there, and when I was purchasing the book, it was a German chap who I spoke to, and he was called Jean Christopher, Jean, Jean Christopher, a friend of Kim Jong-il's. And I got talking to him and asking him about the origins of Kim Jong-il, because I said that I'd found him on Instagram, but he seems to have come out of nowhere. And he told me the story of Kim Jong-il, and I'll quickly relay what he told me. Because he got interrupted in the middle because he was so busy. It did start getting busier and busier, and I ended up walking around, purchasing some comic books, coming back and saying to him, right, so you were up to this point. What he told me was Kim Jong-il wasn't well known, wasn't famous really at all for the majority of his career, and he'd been to galleries and publishers and they weren't interested. They said that his work looked unfinished. because he wouldn't paint it. He wouldn't do the full scenes that he does these days. Well, that he did do in his last, in the last 10 years or so. Before that, he'd do part drawings, and he wouldn't necessarily complete them. He'd do characters without a background or part of a background, or he'd just decide how much or how little to draw himself, and he'd have that discretion to say, I'm happy to leave it there, and that's my artwork. And others viewed it as not complete, apparently. And Jean-Christophe had said that he had, I don't know if Kim Jong-il was staying at his house or whether they were staying close by him in Germany, but he'd said that he had boxes and boxes of Kim Jong-il's artwork just stored in his house, and they were putting it online on his website. And he said that it was artists who started getting interested in Kim Jong-il. It wasn't an audience, it wasn't galleries, it was artists who saw it and said, this is fantastic, I love the unfinished look, and his style of characters are really good, they're really nice. He seems to have a great sense of how to do light and dark, with the smudging that he'd do with his middle finger. He'd kind of draw, and then with his middle finger he'd smudge it in. Or if he used a grey pen as well, or if he watered down the ink, he'd have this lovely coverage of mid-tone along with the light and shadows. And it was artists who'd noticed his work and really appreciated it and started to purchase his work. And before that, he was in relative obscurity. That's what Jean-Christophe had told me, and that's how he started to get popular. And then when he'd put his work on Instagram, he started to blow up. I found him, I hadn't been shown him by anyone. I'd just come across him and loved his work. And I'd sent it to my brother and said, I love this guy. Have you seen how much how he does his work? And it was, I think, as far as I remember, it was him, a time-lapse of him drawing in the front page of a book, closing the book, drawing in another one after the other, lots of different characters, different sizes. And my brother liked it. He appreciated it. It was a different artist to get into and appreciate. And then another artist who who'd been to different events and worked with my brother several times, and who I knew, he was into him as well. And my brother had told me he was into him as well, this friend of ours. And he said, apparently he's going to be in Leeds. Would you be interested in going? And I jumped at the chance. And I was working for myself at the time, and I wasn't especially doing that well. I was kind of struggling, just job to job. I've never really been that efficient with my work, and although I've had opportunities, I just haven't necessarily made it click properly yet. So I went there and I purchased more than I could really afford in not only his book but other artists, and I want to show the books that I got there in a video soon, not in a podcast like this but in a standalone video. So I spent a lot of money that I couldn't really afford at the time, but it was an investment in inspiration because I needed to level up really, and that really made me change how I'd work afterwards, and improve upon how I practice my own work. And that was the story that Jean-Christophe told me for Kim Jong-il anyway, was that he was unknown until that point of artists coming across him and just loving his work, and then it started to just spread around, and he became quite famous really. He did really well and had a great effect on lots of people. Sadly, lost and absolutely sorely missed by so many people. There's a video published by Hyun Jin recently. Absolutely heartbreaking to see him eulogize Kim Jong-il online and discuss their plans for publishing his unseen artwork. And, just because how much he was there all the time with him. So what a loss for him, and I'm sure lots of others who we don't know. So obviously, my heart goes out to them. I wish I knew them better so that I could offer them some support, but I just posted to them my video that I have of him doing the drawing for me. And just appreciate the fact that I got to meet him. He was really sweet, really nice guy. And I don't know the other people who were there. I know that Hi and Jim was there, and I know that Jean Christopher was there, but I don't know. There was a couple of women who were there with him as well, and I don't know who they were. But I should, I suppose, have been more curious and asked them at the time. It would have been interesting to know. Either way, that's my Kim Jong-il story. I've done a couple of tributes to him in my Inktober exhibition submissions. I think it's number 5 because it'll be when they announced it, which was October the 5th. And number 6, I did a weird, almost Kim Jong-il-like image of him as a caterpillar, which was a strange image, but you know, how you process these things is different. So yeah, that's what's been going on. I am feeling a bit better now. I am recovering from my illness. I'm hopefully going to be back on it for tomorrow. Usually every week since March I've been posting an episode of the podcast at 6:30 UK time, and this is way past that. We're now at 8:30 PM, so this is 2 hours late, and it's not uploaded, it's not edited yet. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to edit together the visual which I'm filming and the audio that I'm recording, and post that. And I hope that you like this episode. I know that I didn't have a guest, but I like the idea that I can do the odd episode where I just talk to the viewers, and that is another consideration, is I might do another podcast where it's just me and no guests, so that I can lose some of the pressure of booking guests, even though I really enjoy that. It's been tricky at times, so who knows. I can't imagine it'll be that often I'll do one of these for good values, but maybe I will, I'm not sure. Who knows. Either way, I hope everyone out there is well. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, then please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell, share this with any friends or family who you think might enjoy art-related content. Thank you very much for watching or listening, and I will see you in the next episode.